if it allows. There we go. Cool. Over to you, Bill, whenever or whoever.
Yeah, okay. I'll kick it off and then various people pick it up on the way through. So this evening we're going to focus on the council more than anything else through the whole evening, and there are a number of issues to raise around that which are on the agenda. So we'll try and work our way through that during the night. Got a specific breakout for asking questions in the full council meeting, so we can pick that up then. But we want to look at what's happened about the strategy, which has now gone in and been signed off by the cabinet. Then we'll have a chat about what questions we might want to ask out of that to the council. But we could give you a briefing on what questions have already been asked already. Then there's an issue about the Climate Emergency UK carbon scorecards, which I'd like to go through because I think that's very important. And was, as I'll explain about the meeting, it was a very backslapping thing they had, which everyone in the council was slapping themselves on the back about. So we need to think about what we do about that, and then looking at the full council meeting on the 15th and what's going on there and the detail through that. And then we'll move on to the AGM and then any other business. So I think the AGM is only just a quick one about what we're going to do in it. But for now, if we kick off with the strategy, and Adam's going to give us the highlights and lowlights of the strategy as he sees it so far, that has now been signed off by Cabinet. Adam, have you? Yeah.
Hi there. Hi, everyone. Good evening. Yeah, I haven't done a complete thorough analysis yet of the updated strategy document, so I'll give a sort of verbal update, but I will be aiming to do that over the next few days. But essentially the report to Cabinet gave a summary of the consultation feedback, which obviously we all contributed to. They said they had about 1,000 responses, of which a large number, they said about a third, were traceable back to WCA related people, which is, obviously very significant. And they actually, in the updated strategy, have credited us with contributing and to this drafting of the strategy. Quite how that was done, apart from sort of lots of comments, I suppose, is questionable. But the bottom line of the feedback from the consultation was that the strategy, while everyone sort of agreed with the objectives, the objectives were like, reduce carbon emissions and stuff like that. Who could disagree with them? Make transport more active, reduce reliance on the private car, etc., etc. The concrete feedback was that the whole strategy was lacking urgency, lacking specific targets, lacking tangible deliverables that would actually reduce carbon emissions, and there was no clarity around how decisions would actually be made, which are essentially the key points that we made in our feedback that I think a lot of people picked up on. And so it's very clearly documented that that was the feedback from the consultation. The other one detail point I picked up is that it also showed very strong support for onshore wind in Wiltshire in the feedback, which, surprise, surprise, still isn't mentioned explicitly in the strategy at all. They claim that they have taken all that on board and built it into the strategy. And when I spoke to Nick Bottrell about this, he said, or the feedback he gave me was that, well, it's 30% longer than it was. So that's how we've incorporated the feedback. But what there isn't is a specific guide to what's actually changed in the strategy. The document looks very much the same. It's got a few new sections in it. But what I haven't done and need to do is a sort of line by line comparison. But in essence, they've done some work around the objectives, sort of clarifying those. They're saying they're taking action now on some things. And the example they use there is the EV infrastructure strategy that they submitted in November. Now we know that's pretty poor basically says we're not going to do anything on EV infrastructure. So that's an example of a success that they've already implemented. It doesn't really bode terribly well. They are also launching this discounted solar PV on home scheme in May, I think it is. So that would be another example of something they said they're doing now. And there is a bit more detail in some places. So for instance, they've mentioned rail under the transport section, which wasn't mentioned before. And they've added a bit more to the areas of focus and so on. As I say, they haven't mentioned wind, even though that was very strong feedback that that was something that should be considered. So if you read the strategy, the updated strategy document now, it reads very similar to the previous one, with a little bit more emphasis in certain places. What I think we would say, and this is, sorry, I should have said, I'm incorporating the comments from Nick Bottle in this discussion because they're sort of the questions I had for Nick Bottle were really relating to this strategy, so I might as well cover both at the same time. I think it's certainly still the case. We would argue that it's lacking in urgency because it's still talking about delivery plans in 2022-23, so another year or so probably before they have any delivery. And because so many of the big issues around housing and transport will be tied up in the update to the local transport plan and the local plan, those won't be done until late 23, if not into 24. So in terms of significant policy changes relating to those, we won't see those changes. And they've also, slightly stealing your thunder, Bill, they've said that they won't make addenda to those plans to reflect climate issues. So those things won't happen for a long time. What they have said is that this decision-making process, that once the strategy is formally adopted, which would be the case on the 15th of February, that it becomes part of their policy framework and therefore has to be taken into account in all decision-making, which sounds great, but it's not at all clear how conflicts of interest would be, or conflicts between one policy and another would be taken account. They just say they'll be dealt with on a case-by-case basis. So for instance, if they're building a new road project, which is going to result in significantly higher carbon emissions, how will that impact on the climate strategy be resolved? Well, being cynical, you can probably guess which one's going to win. So even though they take it into account, that doesn't mean it's not giving it primacy or anything like that. The other interesting thing that Nick said about this decision-making is that they're going to be adopting a sort of donut economics approach to quantifying the impact or climate impact of decision-making. You remember, for those of you who were here on a meeting a few months ago, we had a discussion about donut economics. In brief, it's basically taking account of the sustainability impact of a policy, sort of in terms of living within sustainable targets, but also the inner ring of the donut is doing it in a way that doesn't disadvantage people, particularly lower income people. So it's meeting the needs of everybody without over, being unsustainable. That's the sort of essence of it. So it'll be interesting to see how they actually put that into practice. The other thing that Nick said was that the climate objectives have been incorporated into the business plan, which has just been published. Again, quite hard to see where that has been done. I've sort of read a summary of the business plan. All it says about, well, in fact, I think I read the business plan. All it said about climate change was that they would assist the county to have a smaller carbon footprint, which doesn't really say very much. The other thing that they said they're going to do is an independent research project, a sort of consultancy project, which would deliver by the summer of this year, which would set out more tangible deliverables and a roadmap and quantified targets for emissions reductions for at least some of the areas that they're working on at county-wide level of emissions. Although I think, Bill, you picked up that they haven't been able to yet commission a consultancy to do that work. So whether that actually happens by the summer, we don't know. And the other thing that it's highlighted in the new strategy as an immediate deliverable, which is the forum, so engaging with the community around delivery of the strategy, which we would hope to be part of. And Nick said that they're pausing and rethinking on that while they create this new environmental directorate. So sort of basically rolling or reorganizing the climate strategy team and incorporating with other areas in the council. So again, I don't think we can expect that to happen anytime soon. So overall, not terribly inspiring, more detail to be looked at, but it doesn't leap out at you that they've really grabbed the feedback from the consultation, although I think they would argue that they have, and the other thing I would say probably is that this strategy is going to be adopted on the 15th. They're not going to change it now. It's been adopted by Cabinet. So I think perhaps in our breakout session, we need to be moving on from debating the strategy to debating how we influence the delivery of the strategy and how to bring about urgency and focus on tangible deliverables. And this point about decision making, so when they start to make decisions after the 15th of February, calling out, hang on a sec, how have you taken into account the climate strategy in making that decision? The other thing I would say is, which we'll probably touch on, but just a bit of a personal view, I think there's an opportunity for us to sort of re-engage and reset the relationship with the council. Nick Bottrell, when I spoke to him, gave a bit of feedback saying that there's quite a negative view of WCA in the council, that he's been told off for engaging with us too much and so on, and that we're seen as sort of confrontational and irritating, which is good in a way. It shows that we're getting noticed. But if that goes too far, then they'll just stop listening to us. And so I think we need to think about, now that the strategy is done effectively, what is our way of engaging with them on delivery of the strategy, and how can we do that in a constructive, but it's at the same time keeping our integrity and not sort of just giving into the politics. So that would be a question mark I think I'd want to sort of highlight for further discussion. So that's essentially it. Sorry, I haven't got a more detailed analysis, but I haven't had a chance to do that yet.
Adam, that's fine. I think there's a lot to look at, and I think we should all take away the thought that we've got to have a more of a look at the strategy and try, maybe that's part of the discussion about what we ask, questions we ask council. And I agree with you, we should be moving on. But maybe you should try and somehow, as actually Andrew did about something else in the cabinet meeting, where he taking up your point about trying to keep engaged with them. If there's some good stuff there, we should be recognising the good stuff, and maybe we're making statements about some of the good stuff as well as the fact they're not bloody doing anything. So I think what you said there is really helpful in terms of sort of setting out the scene for what we're doing next. Thank you. I just want to go through now what happened at yesterday's meeting.
Sorry, just Andrew's got his hand up.
Oh, Andrew, sorry, yes, where are you?
So just to let you know what I did, I'd asked an earlier question about Wiltshire Council's presence at COP26, got a detailed answer. It was just Richard Kluwer. He drove, he didn't fly. He presented this and that, and he went networked this, that and the other, and it cost around 500 quid. So I congratulated the council and Councillor Kluwer on behalf of Wiltshire Client Alliance, very emphatically on behalf of Wiltshire Clients, very big this emergency is. Thanks.
We missed the last part, Andrew. Sorry, because you were hung up in space somewhere.
Oh, okay. I was hung up in space. So just congratulate them. And it was consciously, a couple of us have made several decisions in terms of relationship management to be nice to them in some way. And I was able to do that at the beginning of the cabinet meeting. Congratulations, you guys, you're so wonderful. And I think at the beginning of or some point in our representations to the full council meeting, if anyone can grit their teeth and congratulate them for coming in the top 5 of the climate scorecard.
They'll be executed.
Thanks anyway, let's move on.
Okay, thank you, Andrew. You come back in a minute because you need to tell us about what he said about your questions. Yeah, okay, let's go on to the second item, which is the main points of the cabinet meeting. I've done a couple of slides here which tries to pick them up now. Can you go back one? Thank you.
Bill.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's Jez. Just one quick clarification from Andrew. Andrew, did you say that he drove up to Glasgow?
Yes, in an existing car on existing roads.
Right.
With a passenger.
Those of us who went on the train and took 12 hours with all kinds of snags and snarl ups, you know, I don't know what you're saying. He could have done better.
Well, I think he could have done better, yes. Anyway, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, that's your answer.
Okay, so yeah, an interesting thing that, Jez. So another thought about cost of flying against cost of travelling. So main points for the cabinet meeting. Firstly, the GBI and climate strategies were approved. There was fairly low-level debate about it, to be frank. A couple of people made some comments, and one of the Lib Dem, Brian Matthew, mentioned the fact that they wouldn't have anything if we hadn't gone in there in 2019 and asked them to declare a climate emergency, which is true. So I think, and they just ignore that, of course, but that's fine. As long as they're doing something, I don't care. And then budget. There was no major climate spend in the budget, nothing really. Roads were definitely a feature, including the Melksham bypass and some of the minor changes. I think they're fairly major in cost. So a quick chip in, and he talked about quite a lot. Not the new bypass, but the existing road, which they're going to spend quite a lot of money on next year. And then we have missed, or maybe some of you haven't, the fact that the business plan was being approved as well in that meeting. Now, that we do need to look at, because as Adam has already pointed out, although they claim they've wrapped the strategy into the business plan, they bloody haven't. And their statement about how they're going to help the county, assist the county, as Adam says, in moving towards carbon neutral, nothing else. So it's quite a water down from what's been said in anything else, and it certainly is in what was responded to our questions, which I'll come on to in a bit. And then there was a lot at the end about the Climate Emergency UK scorecards for UK councils, which will come on more detail later in the meeting. But they came 5th in the whole of the country. This is UK. Sorry, not the whole of the country, just the UK, all four countries, which is staggering, 1, and 2, they were top of the rural counties. Only city councils came higher than them in the scoring. Now, we can look at the detail. I'll try and take you through a bit of the detail of that later on in the meeting, because I think it's really important we get a grasp on this. But I think we just need to move on from that and look at that later. Now, so let's move on to the second part, which was about our questions to council, and there were 10 between 3 of us. 4 from Andrew, 3 from James Gladding, and 3 from me. I'll give you feedback on the second set because and the third set, because James, I think he's travelling still. He might try and join us later. But Andrew, do you want to give a quick feedback on your 4 questions, which I've tried to summarise there?
Yes. So I was supposed to ask about how the climate strategy will knock on into the local plan review and the transport plan. With there's a statutory local transport plan 3. Authorities have to do one every 5 years. And will they be, that was your question, I think, Bill, adding anything to existing plans, or did I ask that? Okay, anyway, the answer to number 2 is no. We're so busy cracking on with our local plan review that we aren't going to divert it in adding anything on low or anything else at all. Thank you very much, was their answer.
Can you switch your video off, Andrew? Your voice will get better.
Okay.
Yep.
Bandwidth problem. Okay. So they waffled and said, oh yes, of course, the local plan review goes through its process and we get on with it.
Obviously not bandwidth.
And then they said, because I also said, well, okay, so how do you see this? How do you see this panning out? Sorry about my internet. For instance, across the road from County Hall, what do you think might be there? What will people see there in 2030 or 2050 to illustrate how very carbon zero 2050 we are? Nick Bottrell seems to be confused by that sort of question. He lacks vision. How to address the question. So Richard Kluwer jumped in and said, oh yes, it'll be fantastic. It'll serve the community. We have a river there, the River Biss going through Trowbridge, and we will improve biodiversity, therefore, with the Green Corridor. So he's more on the top rural council under that new scorecard system, is that they had just published a glossy climate strategy for consultation. So they were able to tick all the boxes. Watch this space next year when it's based on their performance. So they're going to do a local transport plan just to check, will it be respond to the climate emergency? What are the biggest sources of transport emissions that they're going to have the biggest challenges to deal with? McClellan really didn't answer that at all. But between him and Councillor Kluwer, they made it explicitly clear that they will not try to reduce traffic. They are putting all their eggs into the basket of electric vehicles, electric vehicle charging infrastructure, and then there's no pollution problem. And Richard Kluwer said, but a vision. What are people going to see when they look outside at the road outside? What are they going to see? How are people going to be moving around in 2030, 2050? Richard Kluwer said, well, I don't care how many cars there'll be, because they'll all be electric cars. They're not bothered. That directly contradicts an answer to a question we asked last year, saying on the climate strategy draft, will traffic reduction have to happen as well? And the answer from the climate team last year was yes, it will. And for how will it make carbon neutral by 2030? Oh, well, we can't really be carbon neutral by 2030. Everyone knows that. We'll just do it as quick as we can. And the local transport plan will follow the government's guidance on decarbonisation. And I bet that Councillor McClelland hasn't read that, because he couldn't give one example of a government decarbonisation requirement that they will bring into their local transport plan.
Thanks, Andrew.
The summary. I see a question from Maureen, HGVs. So sorry, everyone who can't hear me properly. HGVs won't be electric vehicles. I don't think they know how to deal with that. But there is an initiative to put electric cables over the slow lane of the motorway so that lorries can recharge as they drive along. And Wiltshire could join in that government research initiative.
Lots of things like that could be done, Andrew, and I think that's the point for the future. Thanks, Andrew. Okay, so that was Andrew's little time, and then I asked the questions had already been asked of the council, and they gave responses before the meeting, so we were able to add supplementaries. But James Gladding's 3 questions were about asking them to confirm yet again that the targets were still 2030 for both council and county. Then he wanted to ask about the having interim targets set clearly. And then when the external research proposed in the strategy will be completed, which Adam's already pointed out, they're saying will be June or July. So we had sort of an answer to the last one, but the first one, they confirmed absolutely that the council will be carbon neutral by 2030. However, they didn't talk about scope 3 emissions at all. And so that needs to be addressed in some detail at some point. And the interim targets was an interesting discussion. Unfortunately, Mr. Bottrell got fairly flustered with it. And what was said really was they don't want to set any targets. In fact, this is what Clure said, Richard Clure said. They don't want to set any targets because they will constrain them in what they might want to do. And like central government setting targets that aren't real targets, we don't want to do that. Unfortunately, the dialogue wasn't enough in the meeting for us to be able to say, well, why don't you set targets you can achieve them? But we couldn't, and that may be another question for full council. So I think they are finding it difficult to deal with the targets thing, which we have asked in several questions through. I mean, I've done the same thing in my questions. When are you going to set basically a program of delivery for all the things you're going to do, including changing policies, which is what I asked about, and they have done they're finding that quite difficult. I don't know why they find it difficult to grasp, but they're finding this. Well, let's set some program targets. Quite difficult. Anyway, so that was James' questions, and we've got further supplementaries going in, and they will provide us with full answers to our further questions, which we asked in the meeting, in writing. So we will have something in our hands to see how they're responding to the questions as we push them through, hopefully before the full council meeting. So I then asked 3 more questions. Sorry. Sorry, Chris. I will move on as quickly as I can. So the first one was confirmation of support for both the strategy and the climate task groups, and they said absolutely, we are supporting those. That was the response. Policies, licensing and regulation will be climate aligned or removed and replaced. That comes back. I'll deal with that again in a minute. And then how will they manage policy application prior to that alignment, i.e. now, how are they going to deal with, as Anton has already talked about, the issues that are going on now and making sure that all contracts are now climate aligned. And those 9 and 10, they found impossible to answer because they'd already told Andrew, if you remember, that they were not going to do that. They were not going to put any addenda into the existing policies to help them move forward. They would not do that. They would just go for a new local and transport plan. But pushing, they then said, well, okay, I said, can you produce a list of all the things you need to do and give us a schedule? And why can't you start doing it now? And so in the end, Richard Clure said that we will change incrementally and we'll be testing things as we go. So I hope that comes through in the formal response, because that means they will have to start doing things immediately. What they'll do, I don't know, but they will have to deal with them as they come upon them. So if they're going to place a contract for a road, they will have to deal with the changes to policy at that point, as far as I'm concerned. And when I asked for the schedule and the timescale of when they were all going to be, these changes were going to be delivered, Mr. Bottrell offered to do it in the next few years. So it didn't fill me with joy and happiness at the end of that discussion. Okay, so that's where the cabinet meeting went to, and I think we'll move on from that. You've now got a flavour of the sort of things we're trying to deal with, and we will share those questions and answers with you hopefully in the next week. So if we move on to a breakout session, I think the question now to everybody is, what questions do we want to ask at full council, or what statements do we want to ask at full council? And then secondly, so that's the first section, then secondly, what action should WCA take on strategy development? What do WCA want WCA steering group and others to do to actually take on this strategy development? How do you want us to, are there any good ideas out there about how we can keep poking the council or helping the council positively?
Bill, could I just slightly modify that second one? I think it's in the intent is strategy delivery rather than strategy development, because the strategy is done effectively.
Okay, yeah.
So if we talk about delivery, it's a slightly
I appreciate. I agree with that. Yeah. Okay, so those are the two questions. And if we break, I don't know how we want. What time is it now? It's only after 7. Should we have 20 minutes? Yeah, Chris? And please, can somebody take note in the meetings, in the breakout meetings, of what question, and try and keep it to 1 or 2, not 100, that we might want to ask at the meeting. Everyone back now? Yeah, I think it went extremely well. I think there's some really good ideas from our team, and I think I'm sure you'll have your own as well. So I don't know how we consolidate that, but we may find some similarities between them. And I suggest those who took the notes of the questions, we try and form a little subgroup like we did last time, Adam, to sort of go through them and make sure that they're aligned.
Bill, it'll be a question that's going to come up a little bit later on, but it might be worth talking about now, is how are we coordinating the questions for the 15th of February meeting? So what are we going to do to bring together all those suggested questions and get people lined up to go to the council meeting and ask those? What's the plan?
Okay, so let's have a meeting of a small group to discuss the list of questions. We'll then filter them out. What we've got from our group is people who will ask questions or make statements have volunteered. Okay, and
have they, when you say volunteered, so they
will ask the questions and make the statements.
No, but so are you saying that we've got enough people to ask questions, or if some people are here and haven't put themselves forward yet, is there still an opportunity to do that? And so
if people want to ask questions but haven't got a question, and we've got more questions than speakers, then yes, absolutely. So if you want to put your name in as a volunteer to ask a question and you haven't already volunteered, then please put it in the chat, and that will help. And what Adam and I will try and do is sort of sort that through in the next couple of days. We have to get our questions. I'll go through the process now. So we have to get our questions in by Wednesday midday next week if we want an answer before the end, before we go into the full council meeting. So if you don't want to get an answer before you go into the meeting, then you can leave it till later. It's usually Thursday afternoon. You've got to get the question in. If you don't want an answer, they'll give you a verbal response in the meeting. However, I need to check that with the officer managing the meeting, because sometimes they slightly change the rules. So I just need to check on that. But if we all think we have to get our questions finished by Wednesday midday, we'll be safe, because then we've got to get them in by then so that we're registered. If you want to make a statement, you can get it in theoretically the day before, but I suggest we get them in next week, because sometimes Thursday, say, of next week at the latest, because it is up to the chair of the meeting to decide how many people can ask questions. And the danger is there'll be quite a lot of others other than WCA asking questions, and therefore they may run out of space. You know what I mean? So we may the diary will be full for asking questions. They'll just say no more. So we've got to bear that in mind as well. So I'm thinking out loud, but I think maybe we should aim to try and get everything finished by Wednesday midday, including the statements, and then we can work out, having chatted to the officer, the best way to actually get them in and get the maximum response from it. Okay. There is the potential, and I'm just warning everybody, that they may only allow 3 questions, and therefore we'll be very, very limited in how we can deal with it. But we'll see. We'll have to test that.
Could I just chip in a second, Bill, on that? Because I think a very good idea came out of our group that we ought to, as much as possible, try and push the questions down, well, not down, but, you know, out to our member groups, which may well be more effective, and also, you know, avoid the limits and things like that.
Yeah, I agree, Julie. I think we should do that. We should, if where we can, we should pass them and say, I'm talking for sustainable Khan or whatever, you know. So you've got people talking from different groups rather than everybody from WCA. Although what we did in the cabinet meeting, which we went in as individuals, not WCA, even though we were WCA. It didn't matter then because there weren't that many questions being asked. But I think in this big meeting, it may matter a lot. I don't think they'd want a repeat of 2019. Okay, so good thoughts, and we just need to tie all that up fairly quickly. Claire.
Yeah, mine just followed on from that, really. So just to clarify the process, Bill, because I've got our groups questions recorded. So if I email those to you, then there'll be a sorting out of the, you know, prioritizing, you know, the top 3. If we're going to have
some
3.
will be, I'm sure some will be very similar, Claire.
Yes,
so
I'm sure they will.
Yeah.
And then you would then send them back out to somebody else to make sure somebody can do that.
Well, I think if you send them in, we'll send them
them
back out to you and say, sort out. You've got the guys who are doing that, and whoever was going to ask a question. And then if there is nobody, then we've had to find a volunteer.
Okay. All right. Okay, got it.
But if you can get them back here with us either this evening or tomorrow, that would be really, really helpful, because the more time we've got on it to sort ourselves out better.
Andrew makes a good point about getting young people to ask the questions rather than us old the people. So I think that's a really good point, Andrew. I think that's Andrew.
Okay. I mean, do we want to spend 5 minutes going through the sort of highlights of the questions, or are we okay to just circulate them once we've got them all together? I'm happy to do either. Thoughts, Adam?
I think we've captured them, and we had some really good questions coming up in our group, which I've noted down. So I think in the interest of time, why don't we move on?
Yeah, we'll consolidate them and see where we get to with them all now.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thanks, everybody. That was really, really helpful. I'm just going to talk for a minute. I'm sorry I'm talking a lot tonight, but I'm going to talk for a minute about Climate Emergency UK county carbon score cards. I've asked them through email because I can't find a telephone number, although I do think, if somebody can remember, I do think somebody from them came and presented to us last year, but I can't bloody remember when. So we'll look quickly at the background of it and how the scorecard works. Then we want to have a debate on the scorecards and what, if any, actions need to be taken out of it at the moment. We could take Andrew's view and congratulate them on being 5th and well done, guys, or we could be more aggressive with it and challenge them on actually the outcome. Although, to be fair to them, they weren't scoring it. They're only basking in the glory of the scores that somebody else had given them. So it may be a challenge more to the Friends of the Earth team who did it than it is to the council. So debate on that afterwards. But if I can, next slide, thanks. So who was it from? From this Climate Emergency UK is a consortium of Friends of the Earth, CAT, Ashton and My Society. So there are 4 groups that have come together to do it. And what they've tried to do is to support councils really in trying to get moving forward and keeping local communities work together, etc., etc. So they formed out of, I think they were originally the ones who kept score on who had declared a climate emergency. If you remember, there was a website that ran a scoring of everyone who declared a climate emergency and what date it was and what they'd actually declared. for a long time. That's where they've come from. And as you see, that they've used a number of people, and they've used a volunteer team to go through it all. So obviously it's a very wide church of people who have reviewed it. There were 27 questions, 78 was a maximum score, and the detail in those questions matters a lot. And I've not put any of those up because the details are quite fascinating, but you know, and I'm not sure that they scored. When I read them, I'm certain they haven't scored Wiltshire properly, but that could apply to all of the councils they've scored. So it's quite difficult to do it without seeing everything, and I'm not sure we want to get into that place. Okay, and note that the top performers have a star against them, so I'm sure Wiltshire have got a star. And they've only assessed action plans, not actions. So they've looked at the plan and said, bloody hell, this is good, tick, and then they've got a high score. I had thought originally they scored the plan against the councils only, but having read through it again, they haven't. They scored it about the council's area of influence. So you can take that as you'd like, but I call that the county. So all of that is background to it. Okay, next, Chris. And I put all of these up, and I don't really want to go through the lot, but you're welcome to, we'll send these out after the meeting. So the 9 areas they measured it on: governance, mitigation, commitment, community engagement, missions targets, more benefits, social inclusion, education, and ecological, which they should have scored very highly on because they've created its own plan in Wiltshire. But if you see the sub questions underneath that, that's not all 27, but it gives you a broad brush idea of what each of those main headings is scored against. And when you look at the detail of each of those areas, you can very quickly see, if you know the county, you can do a much better job of analysing it than these guys have done. And yeah, they're looking at whatever it is, 200 councils, and they're trying to do a good job on all of them. So, as I say, not necessarily the council we should be beating them over the head with, but it's certainly the people who scored them. Okay, next one. And this is what it looks like. There's 2 here, but just keep on this one for the moment. You see at the top there, you've got all the main headings against which there are a lot of detailed questions for each. And you can see the scores there, and I've ringed Wiltshire Council. So if you run across Wiltshire Council, one of the things that really got to me was the 9 out of 9 for community engagement, and the 4 out of 5 for measuring and setting emissions targets. But they have actually set emissions targets because they've put up that graph in the strategy, which shows their targets, but it doesn't say what they're going to do with them. The community engagement of 9 out of 9 is 100% because of us. I'm bragging, but I think it is. I'm doing a Wiltshire Council. And the other stuff, well, governance is interesting because they haven't got it. The problem with the governance one is they haven't done enough about funding, I think. But they have got the man in place who's supposed to be there and all that sort of stuff. So Wiltshire scored fairly low, but so did everyone else. So that's the first page. And the second side of them, Chris, if you could just put the other one up.
Is that?
That's the other one. Yeah, sorry. I'm just going to go. Yeah. Okay. So the ecological emergence, they scored 4 because it's got its own plan. Okay. Measuring and setting, we've seen that one already. The co-benefits are to do with making sure other people get, there are benefits out of delivering it that aren't directly climate related, and they're doing a good job of that, and I agree with it. Diversity is easy because they're just covering everybody they can, and they, again, the council are pretty good at that, and I can't argue with it. The education, skills and training, interestingly, they're now committed in their plan, in their strategy, etc., to actually train up the councillors and the council staff. So they are working to do towards that. So I think the first part of it shows, I think they were being really, really generous, and the second part probably more realistic, actually. So yeah, so we could go in and congratulate them. So okay, so that's the background. What do people think? Is that an old hand or a new hand, Andrew?
it's a new hand. Warn me if I freeze and I'll switch the video off. Thanks, Bill. That was excellent. And people have, and you and others have made the point, they've been rated this year on their plan. So community engagement, 9 out of 9. That
you're frozen again.
I think we're in a strong position to congratulate them for their plan being so good. And the person who does that could say to them, do not rest on your laurels, because next year you're going to be rated on your actions, and we will be helping you and the Climate Emergency UK to be rated highly on your actions, but we'll be warning you where you might not be rated so highly. That's how I would approach the congratulating. I also think it's quite important that we take a look through it, a small group of us, I would opt in, and rerun how we would have rated them in case we disagree with their scores. We can actually ask the council what feedback they gave to Climate Emergency UK, because part of the process was they do this provisional rating, they send it to the council for comment, they receive the council's feedback, comments and further information, and then they finalize it. So we should be able to ask for that feedback and take a look at it and check and verify and tell both the council and the climate.
You've gone again, Andrew. I think we pick up your
point. Want to say, if one of us is willing to.
Jez?
Yeah.
Yes? Could you do something on that? You're good at that sort of thing.
What, be nice? Yeah, could I?
Well, I've looked at it and the mechanics of it. I don't think we can get into the mechanics of it, but it does tell you the scoring mechanism, and you can look at each one and put a score against it. So we could create a sort of spreadsheet to do it ourselves. Just a thought. Like Andrew's saying, I mean, if you and Andrew could do that, it'd be brilliant.
What do you reckon, Andrew? Thumbs up would be sufficient. There we go.
Thumbs up's good. Okay, you're on. Thank you, Shirley.
I'd oppose congratulating them on that. Something that I do think Wiltshire Council can be congratulated on is actually getting the Centre for Sustainable Energy to run that day for council officers. That has actually resulted in quite a lot of movement by the lower tier authorities. And I think that was actually a very constructive and foresightful thing to do. And so I would be really against praising them for an instrument that has not been properly applied. The scoring by the national outfit has assumed that Wiltshire has a strategy. They have not produced a strategy. It can in no way be considered an action plan. Both those documents would have to have benchmarks and targets and timings, and none of that is in there. They are just pussyfooting around, and I even suspect that creating this new climate directorate is just another diversion from putting in a deadline and actually doing something. And while it sounds very welcome, it could just be another runabout.
Yeah, thank you, Shirley. I think I sort of have some sympathy with what you're saying, but I absolutely agree on that CSE thing. And I was at that meeting, and it was a fantastic meeting. In fact, I'm plagiarizing quite a lot of the stuff they put into that in the slides, because actually it's a really good exercise. And I did ask about whether they would run it again, and the answer is didn't know, because it cost, because they had to employ CSE to do it, cost a lot of money, and the person who'd organised it said they weren't certain whether the council would cough up another lot, because only 40 people had turned up, didn't they? And it should have been a lot more, really. Yeah, okay, good points. Chris and then Adam.
Yeah, a couple of questions. I'm sort of in favour of recognising the hard work that's gone into it and congratulating the climate team. So in other words, Ariane and her team, because there's lots of work's gone into it and so on. And maybe avoid talking about the councillors doing it. But I know it's as a result of what they put in place, etc. And just the other point is how it's viewed by people of Wiltshire. So if they see that their council is trying to do stuff and is doing stuff, will it motivate them to do more themselves? So if we keep saying your council's crap, will they actually, how will that swing it? Will it? So just having in the back of our mind is the outcome of whatever we say on the people of Wiltshire and what they finish up doing themselves. So just kind of have that feel. And I think we've got to be careful about not being negative all the time, and to try to be positive in some ways. But I totally understand what you were saying earlier on. You know, it's difficult to get the balance right, but some balance.
Yeah, I think we need some sort of decision on it. I'm either way at the moment. I was so cross about it yesterday because they were crowing about it so much that I got out of control. I didn't say anything, but having thought about it, I thought actually it's not them. It's the bloody scoring system that's screwed up, not them. So
let's try and use it to our advantage. They wouldn't be in this position if we hadn't pushed for the last 3 or 4 years to get them to do stuff. You know, so there's different ways of spinning it, but you know, and God help what other councils are doing if they're scoring that badly.
Yeah, well, that's the thing I keep saying. If that's okay, Adam.
Yeah, I'm very much with Andrew and a lot of what Christian was just saying. There's absolutely no point in trying to undermine the survey or undermine Wiltshire Council, because if we say, oh well, you haven't really got a strategy, they'll just say, well, that's what they said. You know, they looked at our strategy and they came up with a score. It's not Wiltshire Council didn't come up with the score. It's an independent body, so it's just our word against theirs. So we just undermine ourselves if we're constantly critical on something like this. I think we just need to say what, like Andrew was saying, recognize, yes, you know, you've got these scores for the things that you've done. That's great. Next year, as Catherine and others were pointing out in the chat, next year it's going to be about delivery. So how can we help you and how can you make sure that you get a great score for delivery? Because that's what's important. It's not, this year was about words, next year it's about actions, and just move on from there without appearing to be just criticizing every single thing they do, because it would just get us nowhere. It'll just undermine our whole relationship.
I think that's the sort of leaning we're coming to, isn't it, Adam? Okay, Tony.
I would actually support that, but also I'd say, how can we help them get to number one? Let's go for ambition.
Beat Manchester, yes, I like it.
Tony, and because in our group, I think probably around questions, the idea was to ask how can you make use of us? Please make use of us. In other words, WCA expertise, etc., in certain fields, and that will help you to get to number one, as Tony says. So, and it's a bit of a more positive spin.
I think Shirley, we're going to go for positive spin rather than. That seems to be the majority view, unless anyone else has got to come up and say no, please don't. I may understand why Shirley said it, but I think I would have been with you yesterday, Shirley, because I was so cross. But having thought about it, I'm not thinking actually it's not their fault. You know, they're just the lucky recipients of a bad score, a good score. Sorry, but I still think we should analyse it and have a look at it. And I think we should absolutely be talking to CE UK about what the hell they're doing. We really should, because that's dreadful. I mean, it's like FOE did in 2019. They gave, I think, Wiltshire Council were top in their scoring, and everybody complained. Everybody, but we weren't WCA then, but a lot of people complained to them. They actually downgraded them. Not that Wiltshire Council ever noticed that. They always said they were the best, but it was. And I'm surprised Friends of the Earth let it run and got those sort of scores, because they know The other point I'd make, Shirley, is that they, in the survey, they call them plans and not strategies. So you could argue it's a plan, but you know what I mean? It's not. So that's what they're scoring it against. Okay, okay. Thank you very much. So what we're going to do, somebody's going to volunteer to make a congratulations statement. Adam?
I think we qualified congratulations for us, just as we and there's some very good points made in the chat, I think, which we need to pick up on, because some detailed points about the methodology and, you know, why they scored what they scored. And I think that's, if we're going to respond, we should do that more detailed analysis. And I think Catherine pointed out that she knows the person, I think, at Climate Scorecard, whatever the so we should definitely be feeding back to them. Do you understand what you know what your
this is how you got this miracle score? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, everybody. I think it was a very good conversation and it helped me clear my mind at least. Right. 15th of February. Let's move on to that now. That's the exciting bit of the day. Chris.
I had problems unmuting myself there while sharing screen. I know it's possible, but I couldn't do it for some reason. So let's share screen again. Okay, so here we go. So your question. Yeah. So we are going to be holding a rally, a demonstration, a gathering. Call it what you might and whatever we feel comfortable with. I think we're probably going to go with the heading of a rally. But that's what we're doing. In fact, what I'll do is I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to go to our website, and I'll share that instead. So if I can guide people about the demonstration that we're doing. So if you go to the events bit here on the website, and if you go to the third one down, it's the 15th of February rally. And we're planning to do all sorts of things. One of the things that we're doing here is that Catherine has kindly agreed to create a load of green hearts, which is the Climate Coalition emblem, and they're going to be hung all over the place. And if people can't come to the rally, please go to this bit here, click on that link, it'll open up an email, put the message that you want to send to the council, and Catherine will add that and it'll be hung somewhere on a green heart. So if you can't make it, at least do that bit, okay? That'd be really good. The also, this is Briggs initiative. Here you'll see that we're going to be sending all our councillors, or in fact you will be sending all our councillors a Valentine card, hopefully. And if you click on this bit here, it'll take you to the Project Valentine page of our website, where you will see different designs that you can print and download, send either electronically or a printed version to your councillor. So take the one that you like and send them off. I see Briggs got his hand up. I know he's probably going to be about these hearts, the Valentine's project. So Brig, come in.
Yes, the idea of this is to really show the strength of our membership, that we're not going away, and to, in a nice way, give a message to our councillors that we want them on side. We want to be able to support them. We want to be able to love them, but for that they've got to deliver on the climate. And so I'd like to see everyone who's at this meeting, not just everyone who's at this meeting, but everyone who's ever signed up to Wiltshire Climate Alliance, sending Valentine's cards to their councillor. Try and send some to your neighbouring councillor as well, as many as possible. Deluge them with our love, but saying you've got to deliver on this climate thing. And this is the thing that we've got to do before the rally. Valentine's Day is the day before, and we want them all to come to the rally having already received all these Valentine's cards from all our members and all your friends and neighbours and anyone else you can get to do it, because it doesn't cost anything to send an e-card. It's just like sending an email. Their email addresses are all on the council website. You can look them up. You can.
The link's here. The link is there.
Yeah, the link's there. You can send them a card, print off a card and send it to their home address. But the idea is to really make an impact, so that they go into that meeting thinking it's not just a meeting about okaying the budget, it's a meeting about the climate strategy and what we're going to do about it. And to make that message in the nicest possible way to them, saying, we want to help you, we want you to be on side, we want to be able to love you, but please everyone do it. Please everybody make a big impact with loads and loads of Valentine's cards, so they come to the meeting on the 15th with that in their mind, that everyone wants to love them if they love the planet.
Lovely. Thank you, Brig. I'm just going to take us back to there. So the we want to get as many people as possible to come. This is our third rally or demonstration. We want as many people as possible to come to be seen there, but also we want to make it a bit more fun for people who do come. So and a bit more entertaining and so on. So we're asking for every one of our member groups, if you possibly can, come along and give an input as to what your group is doing, what you want what will be doing ahead, and most importantly, what do you want Wiltshire Council to do. So even if it's 2 minutes on the microphone or 15, whatever you feel comfortable with, to give an informed update to the people who are there. It'll make it more interesting.
If your group has got a banner, bring the banner so that they can see that the groups come from all over Wiltshire.
Absolutely, Brig. Thanks for that. Yeah, that's a really important point, that we want to make sure that they don't just see the incinerator. We want the incinerator campaign group there, but we also want to see Leaf, we want to see Bradford-on-Avon, we want to see everybody represented there and seen to be represented there. So well done. Okay, bring your banners. It's going to be a noisy and fun one. The Bath Samba Band is coming over with 12 drummers at least, so that should be fun. Richard also lined up a musician called Leon, who's going to do some sing-along songs. That'll be a bit of fun, all kind of climate related and so on. Is that right, Richard? I think that's the plan, and so on. So it should be a bit more vibrant, a bit more meaningful, and also useful for members just being there to learn what other groups are doing and so on. It is 9:30 on the 15th. As far as we're aware, it's at the Civic Centre. We'll let you know if there's a change of plan. You can see where that is on the plan there. There will be a little marquee like we normally do in case it rains. There'll be a sound system, etc. Anybody got any questions about that element of it for the minute? Hang on. No. Bill, you got something? I'm just going to.
Yeah, it was just from the Valentine's card thing. Can I suggest that to avoid a councillor not getting one, that we use the Wiltshire Climate Alliance? Doesn't matter if they get 2 or 3 or whatever, but if we make sure at least every councillor got one, we send it from WCA as well.
Just a couple of other things to talk about is the tone of the event. So we want it to be challenging but polite, and so on. So and I know that's difficult because a lot of us have different levels of anger and so on for the whole thing, but let's just try and keep it so that we don't get criticised too much, if I can put it that way. And we're happy to have a general discussion about that tone of there, and spread the word. Let's have as many people as possible come along to that. Keep an eye on that page on the website, because that will change and we'll keep updating and so on. Louise, I think you're probably going to talk about tone. Are you? Over to you.
No, I wasn't going to talk about tone. I was just going to ask about whether you got a press release.
Yes, yes. Do you know, I haven't done that yet, but we need to, and we need someone to. We did have people. I'm not quite sure who's responsible for putting a press release out and how we're going to do that, but it definitely needs to be done. We haven't got a comms team quite sorted out at the moment, have we? Bill, can you help me on that?
No, we lost our comms team sometime last year. So if anybody's volunteering, we have all the contact details. So all it needs is somebody to take it this time and distribute it to the various press places, including the Butcher Times, etc. But we have a list of about 15 areas to deliver to.
Yeah.
It just needs somebody who's prepared to pick it up and send an email out to all of them and make sure that they've got it.
I'm prepared to write something up. I'm going to be sending an email out to all our members anyway, and I think it'll be very similar to what the email that will be going out. So I'm happy to take that as an action and hopefully to go out in the next couple of days or so. Is that right, Louise?
Yeah, it's fine. No, it's just that XR will be doing a press release as well, and I just thought it'd be good if they tied in together. So, yeah, I'm not quite sure he's writing our one yet. So, but whoever does theirs first, I can forward it to the other one if you like.
Yeah, that'd be really good, actually, Louise.
Maybe. Yeah. But I don't know when we'll get ours done. I need to talk to Chrissy. Yeah. She's quite busy at the moment. So, that's something.
If one of us, yeah, cool. Okay. It's a little bit of chicken and egg. So, Adam, I'm sort of waiting for a little bit of a few lines as to our views of the strategy. Be quite useful if I could get a few lines from you to then put together with the plans for the demonstration. So could you do that for me? Would that be all right? Just a paragraph to go for the press release, and I'll do the rest.
Sure. Yeah. If you have to do that, I was going to say I'm happy to work with you on the press release. So yeah.
Okay. Well, let's do that then. Let's bounce it between ourselves, and then we'll bounce it to Lee. So you and me, maybe Bill or whatever, and we'll just put something together and get that out.
The other thing I was just going to mention on media, the BBC lady Kelly contacted me a couple of days ago. She initially asked me to do a slot tomorrow morning on the BBC Radio Wiltshire on the strategy. They've actually now just heard this afternoon they've moved it to the morning of the 14th, which is because they've just got too much on for tomorrow. So that's the day before the rally. It's a bit short notice, but I'll certainly mention this. The rally is happening the day after, and I also mentioned the Valentine card thing because they should all be dropping that day. But it will get. The idea was we give a bit of view on the strategy and so on, and then they were going to invite Nick Botterill to speak afterwards as a sort of response. So we've still got that good line into the BBC. It's just not happening tomorrow.
Just a couple of things. We're going to plan to invite Clua and Botterill to come and talk to us. They'll probably say no. I think Graham Wright may well come and talk to us.
No, he's agreed. He's agreed to talk. I saw him yesterday.
Who? Graham? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Lovely. And so on. I was trying to think.
He'll give us an update on the climate change. The climate team. Not the climate team, whatever they're called, CTG Council Task Group, Climate Task Group.
One other thing we were planning to do is to prepare a just over a page a summary for our members, particularly for those who are coming along to the demonstration, so that you, if asked, you kind of understand the main points that we're trying to make on that, because I know a lot of us aren't going to have a chance to read the 120 pages of the strategy document or whatever. Do you know what I mean? So we'll try and make life as easy as possible on that.
Okay, and we'll share the questions we're going to be asking as well, so that will give more information. Okay, just one thing while I've got my hand up is if anybody is a member of a group in this meeting at the moment, please take it back to your group and mention the fact that there is something on the 15th, that please can you get everybody in your group that can attend to attend, because we have a stalwart few, and last time I think we had 40 or 50 people there. It would be nice to double that number, and the only way to do that is through our member groups. So if you are a member of a group, please get that message into your group and get people to attend, because it does make a big difference. Okay, that's me.
Lovely.
Back to you, Chris.
The only thing still on the agenda is the AGM 2nd of March. So that was down for you and Brig. Maybe Brig, talking about the slight reshuffle and what's going on, etc. Brig, where are you?
I'm here.
Go around.
I'm leaving the camera off because of bandwidth. So the AGM is a bit of a bureaucratic thing that all organisations have to do once a year, but it is your one chance to hold the steering group to account for the terrible job that we've done in the past couple of years. Make any changes you want to make. Bill, as you might have heard earlier, is stepping down as our coordinator, and we're going to have a rotating chair, and assuming that those who are standing again all get elected back on, then Adam is going to take over as chair, but we're going to have a rotating chair in future. There will be vacancies, so if anyone wants to step forward and join the steering group, then they'll be very welcome, and we might even have a contested election. But last year we got through the AGM business in pretty quick time, about 20 minutes or so. Hopefully we'll do the same again this year. It will be at our next members meeting at the beginning of next month. So that's the sort of formal stuff, and you'll get a report from the treasurer on how much money we have or haven't got, and so on and so forth. And then I'll let Bill talk about the rest of what's going to go on at that meeting, I think.
Thank you.
I think the main thing. Sorry, good, Chris.
So I was just going to just bring up one other quick AOB, a very quick update really. It's around some of the work that Keith is doing. So Keith Freegard, who's here at the last meeting, spoke about the need to do some work with businesses and so on. And some of that's been progressing. Keith, you want to be kind of, I hope you don't mind, Bill, but a quick kind of 30-second kind of update as to kind of where we are with that?
30 seconds, yes. I'm of the belief that the vast majority of emissions are directly controlled by businesses and organisations who are actually operating within a county. And I think the council are important for policy and leadership and structure, but the ones who send gases into the sky, liquids down the drains, waste the waste pipe, turn the heating up, operate things, it's businesses and organisations. And I've been talking with Christian and Tess about the good work they've done to start on this job. And I have a mind to try and mobilise some skills and knowledge from within the organisation to try and come up with a stronger action plan of our own as to how do we engage with the businesses in the county, find out who the most impactful emitters and operators are, and reward and promote those who are doing good sustainable business practice. So that's something I'm just starting on. Watch this space. You will be asked some questions about your knowledge of businesses in the area. That's it. 30 seconds, done.
Thank you, Keith. And just kind of, I'm going to add to that a little bit. So we're going to build a bit of a team around Keith because it's going to be a really big piece of work. I think we have had a couple of new members who specifically wanted to do work around the business bit of the agenda, and so that's really good. So if you're interested, contact Keith or me, and I'll send it on to Keith, and we're going to try and progress that piece of work. So, and Bill, I just see that Julian wants to say something about Slack quickly. Is that right?
Julian, yeah.
Thanks. Actually, there's a second one, actually, because Tony has also been doing some stuff. It was mainly the energy group, but I thought it might be worth mentioning an update on that. But on Slack, yes, it's become clear to me, working on a project in Swindon, how important having a good collaborative platform is, rather than lots of separate WhatsApp chats where no one knows what everyone else is talking about. So been talking with Tess, who's used Slack successfully with the youth group, and we're both keen that we get an email out in coming days or couple of weeks, inviting everyone to it. And it's just a workspace in which you can have channels where you can chat about stuff just like you would in a WhatsApp group, but people can just see what other people are talking about and join in if they want to. And so just to say that we're hoping to do that, and do join and mention it to your group so that people can join in if they want to.
Thank you.
Good point, Julian. I think we've been trying to get Slack off the ground for a while. Suggest, Keith, that you might want to consider it, because it actually will work, and I think it would be good to take it up with the business section. Would be actually brilliant. Okay, final. Just go back to the AGM. The other thing that will happen at the AGM is hopefully, Chris, I'm thinking of you. Is last time, and I think we'll do this time, is the groups will come and present what they've been doing over the last year, so they get a 5 minutes chat slot to chat and tell us what they've been doing. And it was incredibly useful last year because there was a lot of cross-feeding across everybody, and I think it's so good to have that sort of networking, if you like, the virtual networking that took place at that meeting, and we can expand that if we get in that meeting, and maybe have breakouts to discuss particular things. But at the moment, the idea is to have them coming to talk to us, talk to WCA about what their group is at the moment, what their plans are for the year. Yeah,
Bill, just on that point, I just want to re-emphasize the fact that please if you are running an event, please let WCA know so we can push it out to as many people as possible. And I know right at the top end of this meeting, we said that we'd let Julie have a very quick update as to the event that they're planning to do down at Langford Lakes. Do you mind if Julie, do you want to give us a very quick update, a 30-second one, whatever? Yeah. You're muted though.
No, it's okay. I was just writing you all a little message because I didn't know if we'd have time to squeeze it in, but I'll put it up there anyway. So please save Saturday the 9th of April if you can for our very low end. This is trying to, rather than speak to the echo chamber of all us, very converted people, reaching new people, reaching people that are they're just starting to hear that there's a climate crisis and they should be bothered, and they want to learn more and they want to know what they can do as individuals. And it's entirely about taking responsibility or going away at the end of the day with an action plan for yourself of how you can personally reduce your carbon footprint. So that's what the intent is. It's called Being Green, and it's about it's really focusing on the communities in the Wiley Valley, but we're really keen for everybody to get involved across WCA if they can come. It's a wonderful venue, Langford Lakes, which is a Wiltshire Wildlife Trust, our big partner in Leaf. Actually, they've been so supportive. It's a beautiful venue. We've got workshops planned all day, ranging from sustainable food to, basically everything you can imagine, really, fashion, beauty, everything we talk about, how to reduce your carbon footprint on travel. And we're going to have events for the children as well, so having bug hunts and pond dipping and all sorts of fun stuff for the children to do. It starts at 10 a.m. It's till about 4:30, something like that. We've got a plant sale as well going on to raise funds for Leaf. And we're going to have an evening event, which is going to be a little bit more specialised on energy and looking at lots of different energy options in communities of different geographies and so on. Obviously, the Wiley Valley is very special and protected and so on, so there's some issues there. But we're going to have a screening of a film, a documentary called Weed the Power, if you haven't seen that already. It's free to view anyway online. Lots of information anyway. The point about downsizing to one car, we're also applying for funding to run community transport, to pick people up from different pickup points around the area and bring them into the event, so that we haven't got hundreds of cars turning up at Wiltshire Wildlife Trust's beautiful lakes. So we hope we can get that to happen as well.
Thank you, Julie.
That's in a nutshell. Sorry.
That's great. Thank you. Rick?
We're done.
Rick, got his hand up. Thank you.
Oh, Brig, yeah, go.
Just a bit more I wanted to say on the importance of knowing what local groups are doing, and that goes as well for any campaigns that your local group is running in your local area, because we often find, for example, at the last waste and recycling topic group meeting, we were talking with a number of people from Salisbury about them wanting to campaign for recycling bins in the city centre. It was only afterwards, when I circulated the minutes, that I then heard from Adam that in Corsham they're actually trialling recycling bins in the town centre, which is an initiative that they've managed to get the town council to take. And there must be lots of things that we're doing at the local level that we could be networking into bigger campaigns across Wiltshire and feeding on each other's successes and reinforcing each other's campaigns. So that's another reason why it's important for local groups at the AGM and at the rally to let us know what's going on locally.
Cool. Thanks, Brig. Brilliant. Okay, everybody, I think we're done. Thank you very much for a very entertaining evening again. I'll grab the chat. Oh no, Chris, you've got the chat, haven't you? Although I'll grab one now. I'll grab a chat now.
I think we'll do the normal thing and just leave the chat room, room open for a while, so if people want to chat informally. Feel like you would at the end of another other meeting. Ooh. But Andrew's got it.
Thanks, Catherine. You were going to talk to some of us about what you have to offer. It'd be great if you've got a few more minutes.
Sure. Could we schedule? I really have to cook something. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I think let's schedule something, Catherine.
Is that all right?
We got which
Catherine are you? Sorry,
in the chat now with the details.
Yeah, I've stuck details in the chat. And
yeah, we'll set up a session sometime. I don't know, on Friday or something. Can you do work hours, or do you want to do the evening?
No, no, it's fine.
Work hours, okay. I'll drop a link out to who. Jess, did you want to join as well? You were looking.
I think Tessa's computer's died from a message I just had.
Oh dear, I know the feeling. Okay, I'll set a meeting up. If people want to join the meeting with Catherine to discuss things, then let me know and we'll set it up. Brilliant. I'm going to go. I'm something to eat.
Yeah. Thank you.
Fine.
Thanks.
Adam, could I just ask to have 5 minutes of your advice sometime in the next 2 days? That's all.
Okay. Yeah, you got just call me on my mobile. You've got the number.
Thank you very much.